I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
And this is the big homie Bob Dylan, Every Grain of Sand. And this is brought to you by the big homie Marcello. Your soccer team just lost, my guy.
Oh, no.
I don't know if you're a fan of them or not, but what the hell happened? There are multiple ways to get your song reviews.
He's from Arizona.
Yeah, but I still think that that's his team.
No, you're making assumptions.
I am. He'll let us know in the comments section. There are multiple ways to get your song reviewed. Dear listener, my favorite way is the community option. $1 to get you in at Patreon, where you will meet the amazing Lee of the Village, Pony of the Village, Helen Dross, and the mighty Ian.
Many, many greats.
You pull your points together with your various alliance, and then that helps determine what songs we listen to. Now, that starts at the $1 tier. Now, at the $5 tier, you get other perks like hearing the first 40 seconds of our new song that we're working on that will never get released because it's not important to some people. Then there's a $10 tier in which me and our drummer are teaming up to do an instrumental for the baby. And there's a whole bunch of things, t-shirts, mugs, whatever. Also, when the video finally does come out, and we're actually able to shoot the video, which is going to be extremely challenging because we've got people literally all over the world in the band, the $10 tier are going to see the video first before everybody else. And then we've got a pretty big launch date coming as well. So, lots of perks. Go check it out. Now, if you are a filthy capitalist like Sori and you don't want to wait with an alliance and you don't want to pull your points together and convince people to do the song that you want, you can do what Marcello did, which is to hop, skip, and jump in front of everybody. 125 gets you to the short list. And you can do that via PayPal, vinandsorimerch@gmail.com, or you can go into the $125 tier. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can do it. You do that 3 times, you get bumped down to $75. That's what Marcello did. Bob Dylan, Every Grain of Sand. Let's go. I hope this doesn't get bopped.
It's pretty sounding.
Those lyrics are different.
I actually really liked this song, and I'm very surprised that I did. What?
Well, it's interesting because he said, I'm hanging in the balance of a perfect finished plan
Yep.
in the song, but when I look at all the lyrics, it's I'm hanging in
The
the
reality of a man.
the reality of the man.
Yeah.
But in the song, he says, I'm hanging in the balance of a perfect finished plan.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very, very interesting. Lyrically, he sounds like a reform guy. Good Lord.
Yeah, he did. He did. You know what I liked about it? I liked that he was saying, like sometimes they just make it sound like, you know, almost like everything is kind of like perfect, or it can sound like, you know, we have our hard days, but it doesn't sound like, he says, in the time of my confession, in the hour of my deepest need, when the pool of tears beneath my feet flood every newborn seed, there's a dying voice within me reaching out somewhere, toiling in the danger and in the morals of despair. So it sounds like he's really putting it out there, like how deep he's feeling and like what he's going through. And then he says, don't have the inclination to look back on any mistake. That's big for me because I'm like, that's something that I've had to grow in, not to look back at like my mistakes and wish that I had changed stuff. And you know what? Things are the way that they are, and there's nothing that I can do about the past, but I can do things about the future. And like actually really, really embracing that, not just as a phrase, but actually saying, okay, I can't do anything about that. So worrying about that and obsessing about that and feeling so horrible about that, it can't be changed. But then he says, like Cain, I now behold this chain of events that I must break. I liked that too because, so when God was talking to Cain, he told him before he killed his brother, he was like, he told him that like sin was crouching at the door and its desire is to have you, which meant, look, sin is coming at you and it wants to take over you, but you have to rule over it. And he had to make that choice. And obviously Cain decided to kill his brother and decided not to turn away from that. But like, I think we all have those moments, some of them as extreme as killing your brother, but some of them not as extreme as that. But still we kind of come to these moments where it's like, we're just gonna do that thing or not do that thing, even though it has bad effects on the people around us or even ourselves. But I don't know, in the fury of the moment, I can see the master's hand in every leaf that trembles and every grain of sand. So I like that he was just basically saying like, God is in all the things. And
I remember when you first met me, and there's a certain theological perspective that the thing is, I wasn't promoting it. The other person was promoting it
I didn't think he was
because
serious
the other person got into, well, yeah, and I was like, you know, so they were like, yo, Vin believes that stuff, and then so you were coming. She was laughing at your brother. She was like, ha ha ha, what'd you say? Does God determine what toothpaste you use? Ha ha ha. It was all a big joke.
Yeah, because he was saying that God is behind everything, that there's not
I wasn't saying that.
Well,
the
no,
guy,
but that was your belief.
The guy that was
yeah, but he said it in a really, really extreme and horrible sounding way. And then,
it's a God shot him thing, because the dude got shot outside of school, and
right.
You was supposed to be me, but the guy got shot instead of me and all this.
Yeah.
And the dude was like, all right, God shot him.
God shot him.
And he's like, he knew that Vincent was going to be special, blah, 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 so
It's like, what?
He had that guy get shot instead of Vin. But here's the thing.
I just thought it was ridiculous. Like you actually think that God would be in the smallest details? Like he uses close-up toothpaste. Like God's in that?
Well, look. The funny thing about that story
You told me
was
about the shoes.
when the dude got shot, when homeboy got shot, like everybody in the room was like, yo, because I was supposed to be in that situation. I was supposed to be in that situation.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I wasn't in that situation, and that dude got shot.
Mm-hmm.
And so the undercurrent of the whole thing was that God protected me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if God protected me, then why didn't he protect the other? So, like, to me, like, your outrage over the sentence was, like, strange to me. I was like, what is she talking? Like, I wasn't trying to argue.
They said God shot him. That was shocking to me. Why would you say that God would...
Well,
of course, I wasn't really thinking stuff through at the moment.
Yeah, I think a lot of Christians believe stuff that they haven't really thought through. You know, and I think that that's why they do so horrible against atheists. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And they have all these, like, crises of faith or whatever. I just kept it to myself because it was a very, you know, at the time I was only, 8 or 9 years removed from the actual event. So it was still, relatively, a fresh situation for me. And, it wasn't a funny thing to me because I knew the dude that got shot. You know what I mean? And so...
it wasn't funny to me either.
Rest in peace, that big homie. Yeah, but to me,
I was laughing at you for even having the idea that God would be in some.
But again, like I wasn't saying it. The other guy was saying it. You know what I mean? And he was like, and you were like trying to get me to whatever.
Yeah, but the thing
and I was trying to dodge.
Take that guy seriously. So if you actually were saying it, then I wanted to have that. Bring some sanity to your insane thinking.
Well, it was weird because, like I said, like how different was your understanding that God, rescued me versus his understanding that God shot the dude.
It's one thing to say God rescued you, but to say that God shot the other guy.
Yeah.
God did it.
Yeah. I don't understand how a Christian can have a problem with that when the scripture says that it was the will of the Lord to crush him.
I know.
Isaiah 53.
I know.
It says that God crushed Jesus for our sins. Like that's the thing about Christians is like we're cool with saying, oh yeah, God did that to Jesus for us. So if it benefits us, we're completely fine with God destroying an innocent man who did nothing wrong. Everybody's fine with that.
That's not entirely true. Anything that was in the Bible, I was like okay with, no matter how ridiculous it sounded. And so if God, look at what God, he hardened the heart of Pharaoh and then drowned him in that water with a bunch of other people. Wow. I had no problem with that. I didn't even think twice about it. But I had heard these stories ever since I was a small child. So they were just normal in my thinking. And I actually didn't realize how insane some of the stories sounded until I got older and people were like, that's genocide! And so I didn't really know how to answer a lot of it. You came around and explained it in terms I could understand, where it was much easier to be like, oh, okay, it's not genocide, it's not the same
but
thing.
I chilled out in the Old Testament like that.
And you were real about it. You said that's what happened, and you would,
Well, yeah, but it's like...
I didn't question
Why is it... But what I'm saying is, if you were to say that God was involved in the killing of a dude who was...
I questioned some of it, actually.
Who was not a very good person. The guy wasn't a very good person. He was... I'm not gonna say bad things about him because he's dead, but he wasn't a Boy Scout. So, it's why is it offensive to say that God that was the dude's time? His time was up. The wages of sin is death, and he had to cash. That's when God cashed the check. Mm-hmm.
But that sounds different.
That's offensive. But to say God was the ultimate vote caster in the death of Jesus, who was nothing but good, Christians are completely fine with that. They're not offended by it. They're not, the Bible doesn't say God allowed Jesus to be, it says that God crushed him.
I know.
It says it was the will of the Lord to crush him. He has put him to grief. He makes his son an offering for guilt. God did that to Jesus. And Christians are like, yay, okay because it saves us, so we're good with it. But then when a horrible sinner like that gets what he gets, then it's all, oh my God, I'm so offended. Like, I don't know, that's weird to me. I
hear what you're saying, but
I never had a problem
for some reason with God crushing Jesus, it was like, well, you know, that's how things had to go. But with that
they didn't
other
have
guy,
to go that way. He could have sent us all to hell.
Well, no, to keep us from hell, that's the way it had to go.
Right. So as long as God's plan benefits us,
no, it's not that. I don't know if it's angry. No, because I don't think that that's what it is. It's just for me that was just normalized. But even if you phrase it the way that you just did, you said, okay, this guy sinned against God. The wages of sin is death, and the gift of God is eternal life. But this guy continued on in his sin, and it was his time. I didn't have a problem with that phraseology. But when you say God shot him, that sounds different. Like God actively. But it's weird because when I would read the parable of the rich man that was bragging about all his, and he had to build bigger barns and blah, blah, blah. And God said, look, tonight your life is required. I had no problem with it.
And that rich man wasn't half as bad as that dude. But that's, like, if you grew up where I grew up and you saw the things I saw, then things are just different in your mind. As far as, like, how you deal with that stuff and how offensive something is. Like, it's not offensive to me that the person like that, you know what I mean? Like, so, but, the larger context of the discussion to me was, you were, and I could tell by then, it was like the third or fourth week in the Bible study, like no disrespect to you, but I could tell that you had been raised in a certain form of Christianity.
Had been indoctrinated?
Well, not even indoctrinated, it was just that, there's a whole tradition and body of literature that I knew that you were not exposed to in Christian thought. And when you grew up in Christianity, I mean, aside from being taught that Christianity is the only way and you're not taught about any other religion, on top of that, you're not taught that there are different streams of thought in Christian history that are very valid, that have very good points that you have to synthesize and wrestle with. And so I was like, this girl, you know what I'm saying, like compatibilism and concurrence and all these other theological categories that have settled my mind on the discussion of predestination and free will, which is a big part of theme of this song. In the fury of the moment, I can see the master's hand.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if when he said that, I just gotta pop this in there because you have a better memory than me. When he said, I'm hanging in the balance of the reality of a man, but then when he said it in the song, he said something different.
Of a perfect finished plan.
Right. I wonder if when he was writing this, if he still had some question as to where it was, whether it was God or whether it was other things. But then when he was singing it at that point, maybe, I don't know, maybe this was like a live version or something, but then he had come to a certain understanding of it. And so it was like, okay, I am in a balanced plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's and there's that whole little limerick or that little proverb that I actually found in a Superman comic. I actually think it was Superman going up against, I forgot the name of the guy. It's the guy that ended up killing him. Doomsday. And so my brother used to get these comics, and that's when I first read this proverb. For the want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For the want of a shoe, the horse was lost. For the want of a horse, the rider was lost. For the want of a rider, the battle was lost. For want of the battle, the kingdom was lost. And all for the want of a horseshoe nail. So that little parable
encapsulates what you talk about.
Was like, whoa, like these little insignificant moments. And that's like all world history. Like we've all, like, all of us are coming to this moment right now when we're interacting with each other for literally billions of, and there's a movie, The Butterfly Effect, and things like that. Like, there's literally billions of secondary and tertiary contingencies times a million that had to conspire together to get everybody, get me in front of this camera, you in front of this camera, the guy who invented the camera, the guy who invented the internet, all these other things had to conspire together to get everybody here in this moment.
Yep.
And the chances of us being able to cross paths with one another, like, are massively amazing if we could pull back and see how dust or some star system out there, 60 trillion miles away, and everything that contributed for us to get to where we are right now in this moment. So for me, I wasn't looking at it like, oh, this is stupid. God ordains toothpaste. It made me look at the world like, I wonder how this toothpaste thing fits into this plan. And so to me, it was amazing. But to people who haven't thought long and hard about it, it's funny, it's something silly, and all that. And I wasn't going to argue with you about it because, honestly, like, that topic was a topic like I didn't even want to talk about.
It was so annoying because I just wanted to talk about it, and you were.
Yeah, I would avoid that topic like the play. And at the time, like, from my perception,
I didn't understand why, but now I do.
At the time, like, from my perception, like, you hadn't really gone through anything in your life. Mm-hmm. So, like, when you go through really horrible situations that seem to be just purposeless and meaningless tragedy, a doctrine like that says, no, there's meaning around, a grain of sand in some beach somewhere, how much more is your suffering? God is doing something with it. Becomes a very precious idea. But if you haven't been, like, born and raised and swimming in suffering your whole life, then it's something you can laugh at. You know what I mean? And it's interesting because, I have to be kind of, like, put into a corner to have that discussion theologically. Like, I don't, I don't go and have that, go out of my way to have that type of discussion. Like, you got to really pin me to a wall to have me do that discussion.
Well, you had that discussion, and I saw twice in two different groups where I could see why you would avoid it.
What do you mean? I remember the first one. What was the second one? It was the second one? Huh? I don't even remember having it. I avoided that conversation.
You did, but it still came up, and it affected people.
Well, the other guy was doing it. The other guy was... I never...
Well, you kept getting sucked in. Like, people kept trying to suck you into it.
Yeah, people kept trying to suck you
It didn't matter where it came from. I saw the effects that it had, and I was like, I could see.
Well, yeah, like, the other guy, like, he loved that stuff, and it was all, like chess to him or whatever. And he went off and said whatever he said and everything. And these are people who are like gutter street people who've been raped and who've had people die in front of them and friends OD and all that. So when you're just throwing out these silly statements, like, he's not thinking about that. Mm-hmm. And for me, I was like, well, I don't really feel like people are at the point where, like, they just buried somebody. Like, I'm not going to sit there and, Mm-hmm. So, anyway, I really love the song because it's a like, the last couple Bob Dylan songs we did, it was just basically him and his guitar. It was very simplistic and whatever. It's like, all right, cool. Mm-hmm. Sonically, I really like the way that this sounded, and lyrically, I loved what he was saying. I was just blown away by how deep what he was saying, though. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've gone from rags to riches in the sorrow of the night, in the violence of a summer's dream, in the chill of a wintry light, in the bitter dance of loneliness fading into space, in the broken mirror of innocence on each forgotten face. Like, there are these moments in his life, he's lonely and, but all of those things contributed to him going from rags to riches.
Yep.
And so, like, it is a cool moment, though, when you have... So I kind of have, like, okay, this is a theological understanding. This kind of gives me a theological framework for why I'm going through what I'm going through. But it is a very cool moment when you're in a situation and you realize, if I did not go through that, I would not be in this situation right here, right now. To see it, because not all of them, God never explained to Job what happened to him. He never ever explained it to him. But, like, there are times when God will say, this is why. And you know it's why. And you know that. And in those moments, those are my favorite moments because, obviously Isaiah 53 is one of my favorite passages. But, the line that has, like, got me through many a horrible nights is... where it says, out of the anguish of his soul he shall see and be satisfied, and by his knowledge shall the righteous one, my servant, make many to be accounted righteous, and he'll bear their iniquities. Because out of the anguish of his soul, like, you have to be real, like, your soul is in anguish, which is what I love about Jesus. Like, he never pretended that he was something that he wasn't. There were times when he was in anguish. He would talk about being distressed, even before the Garden of Gethsemane, things like that. He would talk about being distressed to just get the thing over with. You know, when he said, I have a baptism to undergo, and how distressed I am until it's completed. You know, like, so, like, yeah, he had real anguish. But then it says, out of the anguish of his soul, he shall see and be satisfied.
Yeah.
And that is like, whoa. Like, there it is. Like, he looks back at it and says, it was worth it. I wouldn't trade it. And so, like, there have been moments in my life where I'm like, oh, okay, you know, there it is. There that is. And some of it is like, you help other people. And sometimes it's just like, you're kind of immune to certain things. Like, there's things that we both went through together that really didn't touch me, but touched you because, you know, you haven't been in that, you know, in opposition your whole life. Whereas from the beginning, like, since before I could talk, I was fighting for my life, like, literally. You know what I mean? So, it just made me very, very grateful for.
I think that for me, the channel has been a huge one of those. Like, when I open up messages and, you know, people tell me how our channel has affected them, or, you know, there's one, I don't even know what the person's name was, but I remember the story, and they were saying, like, they get up in the morning and they're like, our videos are what, like, helps them get out of bed, and they sit down and they have a coffee and they have that with us and watch the show and stuff. And I, like, people talking about the impact that we've had on them and stuff. And I know for sure that there's no way in the world, like, if I hadn't gone through the things that I went through, that I'd be able to do the channel with you in a productive way, because I was a different person before all of that. So the channel, definitely, that's been I
don't even know if you do the channel.
No, I wouldn't have.
You know what I mean? Like,
no, I wouldn't have. You're right.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Cheers. There you go. What do you give the song?
I give this song 9.8.
I can rock with that. 9.8. Very, very good song. Shout out to the big homie Bob Dylan. Shout out to all the nails and the grains of sand that don't mean anything but mean everything. Vin out.
Sori out.
Gone.